Hey everyone, this is Shpan, and welcome to my first episode of Let's Talk Daggerfall. This will be a sort of rant and discussion with you guys about a Daggerfall topic, and today, with all the news about the Oblivion Remaster, I thought this could be an interesting topic for us to go over and maybe get some discussion going on in the comments. But before we get started, if you enjoy Daggerfall content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel or my Patreon in the video description below. I try to upload multiple times a week with Daggerfall mod showcases, Let's Play series, and other Daggerfall content. And with that out of the way, let's get into this discussion. So I've been reading through the Elder Scrolls subreddit a lot these days, and everyone seems super into the Oblivion Remastered release, and a part of me is, really happy that so many people are falling in love again with Oblivion, or for some people, just enjoying it for the first time. But there's also a part of me that feels a little bit discouraged, and I wonder if some of you guys share that sentiment with me. Because this whole situation made me realize that it's very likely the visuals alone of the original Oblivion held so many people from ever even trying it. And the reason this makes me, sad is honestly, the graphics to me look totally fine. And it makes me wonder just how many people would refuse to try Daggerfall out just because it has older graphics. But for me, I didn't grow up playing Daggerfall. I don't have any nostalgia for it or anything like that. I was born in the 90s, but I would have been a baby when Daggerfall originally released, 3 or 4 years old. I played Daggerfall for the first time this year, and yet I still find the art style, the pixel graphics, and the general art design and aesthetic to be really beautiful, really coinciding with my tastes. Daggerfall honestly looks incredible to me without any graphic mods or visual overhauls, and so I can't help but feel a little bit disappointed that remasters tend to garner so much more appreciation than the original, when the original has always been available to play for all these years. For so many people, the remasters immediately just become the default best way to experience the game, without ever really questioning if something like the original art design actually worked well for the game's vision or not. And in the case of Oblivion, I think there's an argument to be made that the original color palette in particular looks better than the remaster's direction. But more importantly, nothing was really stopping anyone with just a little bit of motivation from playing Oblivion and enjoying it. And yet it feels so many people needed this remaster to even have an appreciation for the game. So I wonder how a lot of you guys feel about that as well. And if you're a fan of Daggerfall or not, does the current visual design of the game stop you from wanting to try it or even play it? Maybe it's something you just tolerate but you don't actually love, or maybe you're like me and the style really works for you and it aligns with your, visual preferences. For me, I grew up really loving what I guess we can now call like a retro fantasy aesthetic. I played Magic the Gathering when I was young, and so artwork from artists like Larry Elmore, Clyde Caldwell, Boris Vallejo, and many other legendary fantasy artists played a huge role in my love for fantasy and for fantasy role-playing. To me, Daggerfall's aesthetic, lines up well with a lot of the characteristics of the early and mid-90s fantasy aesthetic. Though of course it has its own unique qualities as well, but it was absolutely a product of its time. And I think maybe the OG fans of Oblivion might be feeling something like this at the moment. That a remaster should not have been necessary, for so many people to try out the game. Everything that people on the Elder Scrolls subreddit are loving about Oblivion Remastered is present in the original, except for the graphics. And in a way, one good potential outcome, I guess, of this is that it might make some people realize that actually there is a lot of value in returning to some of the older Elder Scrolls titles, or just older games in general. So even though I'm a little, discouraged with the way some of the things have played out with the Oblivion remaster, I also believe that both the remastered version and the original can coexist and hopefully plant the idea in a lot of people that some past game designs have differences from modern game designs that might align more with their interests even today, or at least offer something unique that is hard to find in current titles and so worth exploring or experiencing. But I do stand by the idea that everything in the original version of Oblivion, um, you know, could have been experienced before the the remastered version. There was no real reason why people needed to wait for a remaster just to enjoy this game, especially when they're finding out that they really love it, or that it really matches their vibe for game design. Yeah, so I guess this entire situation with Oblivion Remastered makes me really curious about how a Daggerfall remaster would be received by the larger gaming audience, and especially the Elder Scrolls fans in particular. I also really wonder what kind of changes Bethesda would think is necessary to bring Daggerfall into the modern era. I think that's always an important and interesting discussion when you think about remasters. What would need to be stripped away, and what would need to be added? And when I think of Daggerfall, I think very likely some things immediately. I think a company like Bethesda would probably want to get rid of. Um, and I get the sense that they would change the dungeon layouts. They might not necessarily, and they probably could not get rid of the sort of random generation of it, but they would absolutely cut down on the sizes of these dungeons. Probably by a massive amount, to be honest. They might also sort of do the same for towns and cities, sort of cut down on their size, especially if they're focused on redoing a lot of assets, which of course would be a major undertaking. Imagine having to redesign almost every single building, landscape, tree in this game, because this pixel art would have to be very likely completely redone, completely replaced. So I do think Bethesda will be looking at those type of mechanics of the original, and already that makes me a little skeptical about how it would feel to play. Daggerfall's dungeon design is one of the most iconic aspects of this game. And if you're thinking of the original Daggerfall, or even an unmodded version of Daggerfall Unity, it really is the heart of the game, is the dungeon delving. And for better or worse, actually, without the modding community. But that type of, absolutely gigantic dungeon delving design it's a pain point for players, but it's also, a point of appreciation. And I think more importantly, it offers something that is just completely unique when compared to modern designs, modern gaming sensibilities. It's hard to really think of any title that offers that type of play experience. Nothing I've played, no RPG I've played, really has this type of design. So that's its own, interesting, inflection point. Do Bethesda embrace that sort of potential pain point, or do they try to modernize it and turn the dungeons into something that don't really feel like Daggerfall anymore? There'd be a couple other slight changes, I imagine. I worry that they would also try to redesign a lot of the skills. Or if they didn't redesign the skills, they might try to redesign the weaknesses or disadvantages and advantages system in character creation. Because of course everyone knows in Daggerfall that it's possible to, create a character from the very beginning that is extremely strong. And one of my favorite things about the 1996 Bethesda team is that they had this philosophy. Let me slow fall off here. Oh, I can't actually. They had this philosophy to sort of not really care, or actually, it's not that they don't care. It's more that they trust the player to create the type of character and the type of role-playing experience that they want. Sometimes you build a character and you want that character to be, um, suboptimal, intentionally weak in order to fulfill some sort of role-playing fantasy, class fantasy, or maybe it's because you just want to create a challenge for yourself. And the opposite can be true also, that having the disadvantages and advantages system in Daggerfall's character creation, and I plan to make a whole video just discussing Daggerfall's character creation because I think it's just the best. But yeah, that whole system allows people to, have the freedom, and you feel like the original Bethesda team trusted the players to customize and build the character fantasy, the class fantasy that they desired. And in doing so, rather than focusing on perfect balance, rather than focusing on getting rid of anything that can be potentially exploited or something that might trivialize certain parts of the game, they just gave that freedom and trusted the players to build what they wanted. And that's a huge part of what makes Daggerfall's character creation so successful. I mean, you actually can enjoy the idea of building characters that are completely unique, that play in a completely unique way, that have major advantages over other characters you might be playing or might have played in the past. And more importantly, to actually correctly fulfill a character or class fantasy, which should be the goal of any sort of sandbox RPG experience. And I do worry in a Daggerfall remaster that for the sake of balance, they'll think, well, we can't let them make a mage that at level 1 has general spell absorption and 3 times magery, something obviously very strong that will make a lot of the dungeons and a lot of the encounters in Daggerfall really easy. And that's a play experience that, modern developers might think, well, we don't want them to do that. It's just it's too much control for the player to have, and we can't curate the specific sort of game design that we want them to experience. But these aspects of Daggerfall make it such a successful sandbox RPG. It's what makes it so satisfying to play even today, and why it's so difficult to find other RPGs that can sort of measure up to the, character creation or class fantasy creation that Daggerfall offers its players. But I do worry a little bit that a remaster of Daggerfall might somehow miss the magic of the title, or strip away just enough due to some modernizations that would result in the game being too different from its original vision to capture the experience correctly. And so personally, I would not really want a Daggerfall remaster. It's not something I'm really interested in. Because for me, how do I want to say this? For me, the game doesn't need to be updated or modernized. Its graphics and art style don't need to be redone. The passionate mod community already creates enough player customizability that I'm not sure what an official remaster for Daggerfall could really even offer me at this point. Yeah, I mean, this was just a rant, some ideas and some thoughts I had since the Oblivion Remastered, and I wonder if some of you guys kind of feel similarly to me, or maybe you would really prefer a Daggerfall remaster, or maybe even if you wouldn't prefer it, you think that it would still be good or healthy for the community. And I'm really curious to hear what you all have to say. So with that, leave a comment, let me know. I hope you enjoyed watching this and listening to this. If you guys like this type of Daggerfall content, I could consider making more Rant or Let's Talk videos. Yeah, and I hope I'll see you in my next video. Take care, everyone.